Welcome to Sleepy Classic Tales. Tonight, I am telling you our own calm and gently narrated short version of The Hound of the Baskervilles, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and first published in 1902. Part 1. A Curse, a Moor, and a Mysterious Death. As so often, the story begins in the London apartment of the famous detectives. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson sit before the fireplace early in the morning when a visitor arrives. Dr. James Mortimer, a nervous and slightly absent-minded country physician from Devonshire. In his hands, he carries an old document, yellowed and fragile, telling a story that sounds more like superstition and ancient family legend than a case for the sharpest mind in London. Mortimer reads aloud. It is the tale of Hugo Baskerville, a cruel and violent ancestor of the family who once pursued a young woman across the moor. She fled in terror, and Hugo followed her. When his companions rode after him, they found both of them dead. The woman had died of fear. Hugo lay torn apart, supposedly by a gigantic black hound, a creature said not to belong to this world. Since that night, the legend claims, a curse has followed the Baskerville family. Again and again, a member of the family dies under mysterious circumstances, and witnesses report seeing a ghostly, glowing hound roaming the moor. Holmes listens silently, but Mortimer is not here because of an old story. He speaks of the recent death of his friend Sir Charles Baskerville, found near the edge of the moor, his face frozen in terror, as if something had hunted him to his death. The official verdict was heart failure, but Mortimer was at the scene. He saw footprints of an enormous dog. Holmes leans back in his chair, his eyes sharpen, though his voice remains calm. He does not believe in ghosts, but he knows that people often die because they believe in legends. Mortimer continues. The new heir, Sir Henry Baskerville, has just arrived from Canada and is to take possession of Baskerville Hall. Mortimer fears that Sir Henry may also be in danger and begs Holmes to come to Devonshire to protect him. Holmes asks precise questions about distances, footprints, surroundings, and Sir Charles's habits. Mortimer explains that Sir Charles had become increasingly nervous in recent weeks, fearful of something he would not name, and had avoided the moor at night. Yet on the evening of his death, he had gone out late. The gate stood open, and his tracks showed that he had suddenly begun to run. Holmes asks Mortimer to bring Sir Henry to Baker Street the following morning. After the meeting ends, Holmes remains seated, thoughtful and silent. Watson finally asks what he makes of the case. Holmes smiles faintly. The legend does not interest me, but the death of a man who runs from something invisible, that interests me greatly. Holmes works through the night, and when Sir Henry arrives the next morning, the case of the Baskervilles truly begins. Part 2. Warnings, Shadows, and a Step onto the Moor. The next morning, Dr. Mortimer and Sir Henry Baskerville arrive at Holmes's apartment. Sir Henry is a strong man with an open expression, not someone easily frightened by family curses. Yet even before they sit down, Mortimer reports that Sir Henry has received an anonymous letter. It is made from words cut hastily from a newspaper, forming a clear message. Do not return to Baskerville Hall. Holmes examines the note with cold precision. He identifies the newspaper, the typeface, the glue. To him, the letter is not an omen, but proof that someone is watching Sir Henry closely. Soon another incident follows. When Sir Henry buys new shoes, one pair mysteriously disappears from his hotel room. Later, one shoe is returned, but the other vanishes completely. Holmes sees no coincidence. Shoes can be used for scent and tracking. Someone is preparing something. Despite all warnings, Sir Henry decides to travel to Devonshire and claim his inheritance. Holmes senses the danger, but he himself is tied to another case in London. He therefore makes an unusual decision. Watson will go in his place. Watson accepts the task without hesitation. Holmes instructs him to observe everything, every sound, every person, every detail at Baskerville Hall. At the railway station, Holmes notices another figure, a bearded man behaving deliberately inconspicuous, watching Sir Henry. Holmes attempts to follow him, but the man escapes. The journey to Devonshire begins. As Watson, Sir Henry, and Mortimer travel farther from London, the landscape grows lonelier. Hills turn barren, clouds hang heavy, and the moor spreads out like a gray-green sea. Baskerville Hall appears at last, dark and massive at the edge of the wilderness. Inside, they are greeted by an elderly servant, Barrymore, tall and silent, his expression guarded. Watson immediately senses something strange in the house, a mixture of grief and expectation, as if the walls themselves have absorbed Sir Charles's fear. That night, Watson hears footsteps moving quietly through the corridor. Someone is walking the halls after dark. He does not follow them, but notes the direction. The next day, Mortimer shows them the spot where Sir Charles was found, a tree-lined path leading toward the moor. Mortimer speaks softly of the footprints he himself saw there, large and unnatural, belonging to a dog larger than any he knows. Watson remains calm, yet doubt begins to grow within him. Legends are legends. But what if something unknown truly lives on the moor? That evening, as the wind sweeps across the land, Watson hears it. A howl. Deep, long, unsettling, coming from the direction of the moor. Sir Henry does not ask what it was. He already knows. He has heard it before. Part 3. Secrets, Suspects, and a Trail on the Moor. Watson begins his work with care. He observes, writes, and remains alert to every detail. Within days, he realizes that Baskerville Hall is a house full of shadows and of people who know more than they say. Every night, Watson hears footsteps in the corridor, slow and steady, stopping before a certain room and disappearing again after a few minutes. One evening, he follows the sound and finds Barrymore standing by a window, holding a candle as if signaling across the moor. When Watson confronts him, Barrymore claims he was only checking the weather. Watson does not believe him. The next day, Sir Henry learns of the incident, and together they question Barrymore again. The truth emerges. Barrymore is indeed giving signals, but not to a stranger. He signals to his brother-in-law, Selden, an escaped convict hiding on the moor. Barrymore and his wife help him out of pity, not malice. Watson and Sir Henry show understanding, yet one thing remains clear. The moor is dangerous, and someone unpredictable roams it. Watson meets other neighbors as well. Mr. Stapleton, a polite and nature-loving man who lives nearby with his sister, knows the moor intimately and guides Watson to safe paths. Miss Stapleton appears tense and serious. When she meets Sir Henry, she grows visibly nervous and seems desperate to warn him without openly saying why. She pulls Watson aside once and whispers urgently, "Leave this place. Take Sir Henry with you. He is in danger." Later, she denies ever having said this, claiming Watson misunderstood her. Something about this family is deeply wrong. Watson explores the moor alone. It is vast and empty, a landscape of mist, stone, and hidden marshes. An old man tells him he has seen a gigantic hound at night, glowing, unnatural, with eyes like fire. Watson tries to remain rational, but the silence of the moor presses heavily on him. Near a rocky outcrop, he discovers a small cave hidden among the stones. Inside lie blankets, tools, and food remains. Yet the strangest thing is not the cave itself, it is the feeling that someone is nearby, watching him. Watson returns to the house, writes everything in his report, and sends it to Holmes. He wishes Holmes were there. The case feels larger, darker, and more confusing than any he has faced alone. That night, it is not Miss Stapleton, not Barrymore, and not the convict that troubles Watson most. It is the howling, louder, longer, clearer than ever, a sound that cuts through bone and soul and tears the sky above the moor apart. Watson stands at the window. Sir Henry stands beside him. Both know one thing. No ordinary dog howls like that. Part 4. Truth in the Fog and the Master's Return. Watson spends the following days observing every corner of the moor. He records everything, his encounters with the Stapletons, the nighttime movements in the house, and the growing sense that the case expands the longer he remains at Baskerville Hall. He repeatedly feels drawn to the hidden cave. Something tells him this place is the key. And indeed, when he enters it again, he hears footsteps behind him. He turns, ready to face an unknown figure. But the man standing at the entrance is Sherlock Holmes himself. Holmes looks exhausted but focused as ever. He admits that he has been on the moor for several days, hiding in the cave. He wanted to test Watson's observations without influencing the case with his presence. Watson is upset at first, but Holmes explains calmly that he did not want to frighten the convict Selden, and that he wanted to observe people when they believed Holmes was absent. He has seen much, heard much, and understood much. Holmes explains that the key is not the convict, not Barrymore, not the old servant, and not the legend. The key is Stapleton. Holmes has discovered that Stapleton is more than a friendly naturalist. He is a Baskerville heir, a distant relative who concealed his identity to gain control of the family fortune. Holmes believes Stapleton already caused Sir Charles's death. Watson is shocked. Holmes explains that Sir Charles had a weak heart and was driven to terror. The footprints were real, but the Hound was no ghost. Holmes found traces of phosphorescent paint and fabric, proof that a real dog had been prepared to appear as a demonic creature. Stapleton used the legend as a weapon. Holmes is convinced that Sir Henry is the next target. Holmes outlines the plan. They must lure Sir Henry onto the moor under the pretense of an invitation from Stapleton. Only then can they catch the criminal in the act. That evening, Sir Henry is told only part of the truth. Holmes does not reveal that his life is in immediate danger. They go to the moor. The wind rises. Fog creeps across the ground. Darkness swallows the landscape. Holmes and Watson hide while Sir Henry walks on alone. For a moment, all is silent. Then a sound freezes their blood. A hoarse, deep howl cutting through the moor like a blade. Watson grips Holmes's arm. Holmes whispers, "There he is." Something moves in the fog, something large, something black, with eyes glowing in the moonlight. Then it leaps. Part 5. The Glowing Hound, the True Culprit, and the End of the Curse. Sir Henry walks alone along the narrow path leading from Baskerville Hall toward the moor. His steps are muffled by the damp ground. The fog thickens, spreading like a gray blanket. Holmes, Watson, and a local officer lie hidden behind a rock. Holmes orders them to remain still. He wants the criminal caught in the act, not merely suspected. The howling sounds again, closer and rawer. From the fog bursts a gigantic dog. black and muscular, its mouth glowing unnaturally in the darkness. Its fur shimmers as if coated with something. The dog charges Sir Henry. He screams and runs for his life, but his strength is fading. At that moment, Holmes leaps up and gives the order to fire. Watson and the officer shoot together. The hound is hit. It stumbles, struggles, then collapses. Sir Henry falls to the ground, gasping, alive but paralyzed with fear. In the light, they see the truth. It is a real dog, huge and brutally trained. Its fur is covered with a glowing chemical substance to make it appear ghostly. No curse, no spirit, only an animal turned into a weapon by a man. Holmes says quietly, "The hound was never the real monster." Sir Henry is taken back to Baskerville Hall to recover, but the case is not over. Holmes, Watson, and the officer go to Stapleton's house, which appears abandoned. Inside, they find maps, notes, and evidence confirming Holmes's theory. Stapleton is indeed a Baskerville relative who planned to control the inheritance from the shadows. He trained the dog to track Sir Charles and Sir Henry by scent and coated it with glowing chemicals to bring the legend to life. When he realized the net was closing, he fled. They follow his trail into the moor. The fog is thicker than ever, the ground treacherous with hidden bogs. Holmes leads with extreme caution. The tracks lead into the most feared part of the moor, a deadly mire. They find a hat, a walking stick, scraps of cloth. Holmes stops. "He went in here," he says quietly. They do not find a body, but the evidence is clear. Stapleton sank into the mire, consumed by the land he used for his crimes. Back in London, Holmes and Watson sit again before the fireplace. Holmes calmly explains how everything fits together. Stapleton used the legend as a tool, drove Sir Charles to death through fear, and planned the same for Sir Henry. He sent anonymous warnings to appear credible and played the friendly neighbor while pulling the strings. The hound was real. The curse was not. Watson writes everything down. He has seen how powerful belief can be when fear takes hold. Holmes remains sober. For him, it was a case of greed, calculation, and a willingness to cross any boundary for money and inheritance. Sir Henry later returns to Baskerville Hall, free of threat and curse. The moor remains as it always was, silent, lonely, wrapped in fog. But the Hound of the Baskervilles is now only a memory. Holmes ends with a quiet sentence. "It is rarely ghosts that trouble our lives. It is almost always people." That was our calm, short version of The Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle, a story about fear, superstition, and how easily people can be manipulated when uncertainty blends with old legends. Perhaps you wondered why so many characters believe in the curse despite evidence to the contrary, why Holmes stays in the background for much of the case, and what makes this story so unsettling even without a supernatural explanation. We explore these questions and many more in our companion book, Golden Pages, Volume 1. The link can be found in the description. Good night, and if you like, we will listen to each other again tomorrow.